thinking what movie series I should review next had me stumped because I didn't want to cover a whole series and then have a new one come out right after and make it obsolete. But some guy suggested I should do the Back to the Future movies, and I thought that was a great idea. I forgot how damn charming this movie is. From the concept to the execution, it's all done so well. And I can't imagine how blown away people were when this first came out almost 40 years ago. How is it that a 40-year-old movie is better than some movies today, like Madame Web? This movie just ages like fine wine, except for the Not yet. It doesn't waste its time getting straight to the good stuff, and it doesn't bother explaining how Doc and Marty met, because you don't really need to know. You get all the information you need from their interactions after the very drawn out opening scene of all of Doc Brown's shit. It's also in these opening scenes that give us a lot of little details that come into play later, like the clock tower being struck by lightning, which definitely won't be a major plot point later. There's obviously a few things that didn't work in this movie for me, like there being terrorists. I get they need to gun down Doc and get Marty into the DeLorean, but this could have worked with like the FBI or the police. I don't know, these guys just feel out of place. As well as the incel. Maybe later. The pacing as well makes some scenes and sections of the movie feel like they drag. Like, stop showing Marty's mum hitting on him. Yes, Marty's mum has the hots for him in the past, and it's very weird. The movie revolves around this concept of time travel, and we can't deny how big this movie impacted later time traveling films. They set up rules which plenty of movies follow, except you, Endgame. The movie actually explains everything really well, from how the time machine works to the final plan in the climax. Obviously, understanding what's going on is important. I personally wasn't around in the 50s, but I'd like to say that this was probably a decent representation of the time. Marty's a great protagonist. He's very clever and all around just really charming. Even though he was on a strict deadline, he took a victory lap after getting his parents back together. Michael J. Fox did a fantastic performance conveying the weirdness of the pseudo-incest. Seeing him just interact with his family in the past was so amusing. There's just a lot of jokes revolving around Marty's future boy status, which I just love.
My name is Darth Vader.
While Marty is a great character, the other characters are standouts as well. George McFly's character arc was satisfying to watch. Lorraine is... and Dr. Emmett Brown, oh boy. Him and Marty are the best duo to watch. They just have a really heartwarming friendship. No wonder they become a pop culture powerhouse. They even inspired Rick and Morty. The movie ends with Doc's plan almost going to shit like 3 different times. But Marty eventually gets back to the future and watches Doc get lit up again. But Marty's meddling in the past changed the future, so Emmett has a bulletproof vest. His parents are now cool, and he has a nice pickup truck. The ending just wraps up everything really nicely, but then Doc shows up again from the future and needs Marty's help. Just let my man relax for 5 seconds. Obviously, this movie was a smash hit, earning a shit ton of money from a budget of, oh my. If this movie was made today, using inflation to up the budget and box office, then it would have had a $50 million budget and would have earned $1.1 billion. Let's make a sequel! You want more time travel? I'll give you more time travel, damn it. Thankfully, they took the most interesting part from the last movie, time travel, and practically tripled it. Instead of only visiting one time period, we explore the distant future of 2015, go to an alternate present day of 1985, and back to the past. Going to the future was a must, since it was teased at the end of the last movie. But I don't think anyone would have thought they would go back to the 50s again. The main chunk of the movie is set in 2015, and yep, this is exactly how 2015 was. It's really neat exploring Marty's future family, and Jennifer tags along this time. She was Marty's girlfriend in the first movie. I don't think I mentioned her. She was actually recasted, so they had to reshoot the scenes at the end of the last movie to connect it back here. The conflict in the future is that Marty's son goes to jail, which starts a chain reaction of bad events for the McFly household. So Doc Brown wants to help. The future aesthetic is just as charming as the 50s look, and I like how they repeat sequences from the last movie, but with changes to accommodate the future setting. Same goes for the characters. Michael J. Fox plays his future self and his son. That's just fun. This also starts the great trend of Marty losing his mind when someone calls him a chicken. I wish this was established more in the first movie because it really comes out of nowhere. Next, we end up in 1985, but It's a different timeline because of old Biff's tampering. George is dead, Doc Brown is in a psych ward, and Lorraine has boobs. Oh, and she's married to Biff. He's the richest man alive because of a sports statistic book that old Biff gave him from the future. Marty finds this all out by questioning Biff and jumping off a building. Emmett and Marty have to travel back to 1955, but more specifically, the events from the first movie, which could have led to the movie feeling repetitive and samey. They managed to add another layer to the last movie by having Marty sneak around, so himself from the last movie won't be able to see him and blow up the universe. Yeah, the whole plot's pretty complicated, but again, they do a great job explaining everything. We watch old Biff talking to his past self, and we actually get a lot of scenes like this with the other characters. All the editing tricks to get around this is always fun to spot. Like, look, one side is shaking. Marty eventually destroys the book by the end, and the timeline is saved. So all they have to do is go back, or forward, to 1985, and everything's good. Oh, yeah, we get a crazy cliffhanger, with it revealing that Doc was sent to the distant past. I wonder where the story is heading. While this movie was still really good, my biggest problem again was the pacing. I don't know if it's my young nature, but this movie feels like it goes on for so long. It's a nearly 2-hour movie, but I can watch Endgame with no problem. So what's going on here? Maybe it's the copious amounts of slow, suspenseful scenes, like Marty chasing around that book, for it just to be the wrong one. I hope the final movie fixes this problem for me. When do you think our heroes are going to travel to this time? If you said the dinosaur period, you'd be wrong. We're in the Wild West, baby! Woo! We actually got a preview to this one at the end of the second movie, because it looks like they shot this right after the last one. It even came out a year later. It's crazy that we got 3 really solid movies in the span of only 5 years. Before the main plot gets kicked into gear, we spend some more time in the 50s, and we get some more of 50s Doc Brown. I love the contrast between the two Emmets we have. Doc in the 50s is a little less skittish, and is always kind of behind on what's going on, while the Doc from the 80s is more used to the time travel, and feels more in control of what's going on. Actually, Emmett feels more like the main character this time around, as the whole plot revolves around him getting out of the 1800s, because if they don't, he'll die again. I think it's a great idea having the focus on Emmett, as the last 2 movies have been very McFly focused. Don't get me wrong, Marty does have kind of a character arc, as he gets over his stupid chicken thing, but it's more about Emmett. I'm glad to report that the pacing problem for the last 2 movies has been fixed here. This is the longest movie in the trilogy, but it went by really quick for me. There were a few other things that I wasn't all too pleased about, however. Having another Biff as the antagonist feels a little repetitive to me. Like, I get it's a way for the trilogy to feel connected, and we even saw Griff in the last movie, but I don't know. What if it was one of the McFly ancestors? I feel like you could have had the same conflict, but with a McFly. I think that would have made the movie more personal for Marty. What do I know? I just sit and watch movies. There's also the trend of recreating scenes, kind of like I mentioned last time. Like, he was cute in the last movie, but now it's getting old. At least there's no insert, oh my god, Doc's packing heat. I found myself enjoying the 1800 stuff a lot. Like, Marty and Doc's plan to get home is to push the DeLorean with a train, but they come up with it pretty early on, so they kind of just vibe for a few days. Like, this looks so fun! I love to be here, if not for all the... Speaking of shooting, Marty gets shot, but he's fine because of a Clint Eastwood reference. This was actually foreshadowed in the last movie, right here with Naked Biff. I did like Marty going by an alias. The first movie he was Calvin Klein, and here he's Clint Eastwood. The ending is also so intense. Everything is going to plan, but Doc's girlfriend has to show up and ruin it. Yeah, my man was getting some, but obviously he can't stay, so she dumps him. But oh, never mind, she wants to be with him. Doc isn't able to get in the car in time, so he stays in the past. Marty's the only one that goes back to the future, and the time machine is destroyed. I guess we'll never see Doc Brown again. Alright. He makes a new time machine out of a train, but for 2 movies now, he's been determined to destroy the time machine. But then he just makes a new one? I guess he would want to see his bestie again. I think the trilogy had a very satisfying end to it, and Marty even saves his own future by not racing this guy. What a great ending to a great trilogy. I'm kind of shocked that these movies were left untouched. No forced 4th movie, no reboot, no nothing. I would hate to see this franchise be tarnished, as you don't need another sequel. And all of these movies made bank. Now if you excuse me, I have to go to the past and tell my past self to review these movies. Tom, you need to watch the Back to the Future movies. Oh!